Org number 3030.
This right here is the future of wrestling.
It's Sunday night, and you know what that means. It's time to go live on 9:30 a.m. The Answer's Pro Wrestling Show, San Antonio Wrestling Showcase with Dan Cialana.
I'm Dan Cialana. This is San Antonio Wrestling Showcase, talking pro wrestling every Sunday night, 9 p.m. right here at 9:30 The Answer. And we're going to get right into it because this has been a huge wrestling weekend. We go to the phones and talk to my good friend, the Outlaw, John Rocha. How you doing, John?
Good, Dan. How are you? Thanks for having me on, man. Excited to talk about everything we're going to talk about tonight.
Now, Rocha, before we get to the wrestling, did part of you panic when you heard that promo calling this a conservative talk station?
Hey, man. I'm always open to both sides of the political spectrum, never shutting out the conversation.
That's
so
not
like
true.
Conservative?
Now, John Rocha, this is the first time. This is the first time you've been on this show, on this station, on the new show, and you're lying to me from the gate, right out of the gate.
Not true at all.
No,
not true at all.
Outlaw.
I have many conservative friends. Yeah,
yeah. Some of your best friends are conservative. All right, okay. John Rocha.
Yeah.
Now I know we're going to talk WWE. We're going to talk Crown Jewel, which I'm sure you watched on a Thursday afternoon because hey, there's not much else to do, right? Thursday afternoon.
Right, exactly.
Work.
I don't have anything else to do. You're right. Absolutely.
But Rocha, I know it was your birthday yesterday, so happy birthday. And
Thank you.
I got to mention, in case you didn't see it last night on Impact Wrestling, for your birthday, John Rocha, we saw the reunited Iconics, now the inspiration over at Impact Wrestling. So, John Rocha, how great is it to have that birthday present of the reunited Iconics? You love it, don't you?
I do. I'm glad to see the ladies back. Hopefully they will allow them to fully wrestle. From what my co-host Aaron Turner has said on Strong Style numerous times, they did not allow the Iconics to fully show what they could do in a ring. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they do on Impact. Interesting place to land for them, but hey, obviously they still love the business and want to be a part of it. So shout out to them. But yeah, I appreciate your sarcasm. Thank you.
Now, John Rocha, speaking of interesting places to land, Saudi Arabia is where that pay-per-view Crown Jewel was last Thursday. And before we get into the matches, are we past the point now where we're going to be debating whether this is moral for WWE to go to Saudi Arabia, or is that ship sailed?
I think Vince has made that ship sail. Whatever our feelings are about it, they are doing it. The fact that they brought in female wrestlers over the last 2 years, I think, has really kind of quieted the criticism of the whole situation. And, whatever your feelings are about that, it's I respect it. Certainly, you don't want to get too deep into it, but I totally understand why people would still have an issue with it, certainly. But by the same token, business is business. Vince has never been one to listen to the outcry of anybody who has an issue with anything he's doing. So he's going to do as Triple H said many times, what is best for business. And certainly this contract has shown that he can deliver when he puts this thing in motion. And I'm telling you this right now, this is the best Crown Jewel pay-per-view we have seen since they started doing this as part of their contract over the last few years.
Absolutely. John, like Crown Jewel used to be, for me at least, kind of like a glorified house show. You could actually miss the show and really not miss much of what's going on. But like you said, I think this was the best Crown Jewel they've done so far. Crown Jewel is finally a pay-per-view, a WWE pay-per-view of some consequence. It's something that you can't miss. Now, someone I never want to miss, John, Zelina Vega.
Yeah.
How about that?
Oh,
she is crowned as the first ever, the Queen's Crown, I guess, Queen of the Ring for WWE. I'm looking forward to some... I imagine some great, if she's still the queen by the time WrestleMania comes out, I imagine some great, just elaborate Aztec queen sort of entrances, sets.
Yeah.
I don't know if she still has that OnlyFans, Zelina Vega, so that might get a little more interesting too. I might have to borrow your login credentials for that one, John.
Yeah, please.
Check that out there. But is there any matches from the women's matches, I'd say, that really stood out for you at Crown Jewel?
Well, I think the Dewdrop and Zelina Vega, it was more about the results that was a joy for me because Zelina has worked so hard to be taken seriously in this business and has been through numerous promotions. Remember, her and the WWE parted ways. She was on Twitch for a while and then kind of circled all the way back, and now she's the first ever Queen's Crown or Queen of the Ring, as you said, and that's great. Was the match any good? Hardly, barely. I think we saw the limitations of Dewdrop. as a wrestler in this arena, and their chemistry really wasn't that great. It was a 6-minute match, so there's not much to judge here. But the triple threat match I thought was fantastic. It started out a little wonky. Felt like all three of them were kind of figuring out how to make this work, and then they hit their stride about a quarter of the way to the match, and it was stellar all the way through. And Dan, I'm going to say something. I said this on my show over the weekend, and this is what I really believe. And some people may get mad at this, and certainly Sasha might if she listens, or Becky might.
Uh-oh.
But Bianca Belair has transcended those two ladies. This is just insane to me because I thought Sasha and Becky were the pinnacle of women's wrestling for the last few years. Certainly Sasha and Bayley tearing down the house at that NXT TakeOver in Brooklyn, then Becky Lynch becoming the man. No one was happier for her than I was to see her finally break out from the Four Horsemen and do her own thing. But Bianca Belair is such a physical specimen, an incredible character. She looked like she could throw them both around the ring like rag dolls, and eventually she will be the future of the WWE, and women coming behind her will emulate what she is doing now, just as they emulated what Sasha and Becky and Charlotte and Bayley did.
Talking to John Rocha, the Outlaw John Rocha, right here on San Antonio Wrestling Showcase. I am Dangerous Dan Ciolana. And, you know, speaking of Bianca Belair, she's someone who I've had a chance to interview, or I got to interview her before WrestleMania. And just the sweetest lady, just so inspiring. Yeah. She just has that star power. And one woman star that was notably not there at Crown Jewel was Charlotte Flair. And I don't know if you believe or have heard the rumors backstage. I don't know if it's just some wrestling gaga and some magic, but they're saying that there is some legitimate heat in the women's roster at WWE for Charlotte Flair, and particularly between her and Becky Lynch. Now, John Rocha, my old co-host Brandon Medina from Town for the Count, always made fun of me for being gullible and thinking that everything in wrestling is absolutely 100% legit. But Rocha, do you believe that there may actually be some heat backstage real-life heat against Charlotte Flair, especially since things have gone weird with her dad in the company and her boyfriend works for the competition? Do you believe that Charlotte Flair is maybe going to be on the outs of WWE soon?
I'd be surprised because where is she going to go? She's the queen of wrestling, man. She can't go anyplace else. But what I think she's doing is flexing her muscle a little bit. I do believe there were some issues about the title exchange, which is what kind of blew this whole thing up. But I imagine she has been a little upset kind of quietly and then maybe building over the last couple of years, seeing how Becky has essentially eclipsed her. Becky is, in essence, where Charlotte Flair was and expected to be the whole time. The fans have turned on Charlotte. They boo her. They come up with chants. No matter what she does, she did a double bird to the fans during a pay-per-view a few months ago. So there's a lot of frustration here from Charlotte that she's not the number one person in the company as a woman. It doesn't mean she isn't a giving wrestler. She understands storylines. She respects the business. That's irrelevant. It's the emotion and the ego that these women have to achieve what they've achieved. It's very strong, their egos. And trust me, on a very, very smaller scale, the Schmodown is the same way. There's something I was part of for a long time. Mm-hmm. The real frustrations of wanting to achieve success can bleed over into real relationships and cause fractures in those relationships because you're frustrated that you haven't achieved more or you're achieving more and other people are jealous of what you're achieving. So that happens irregardless of who you are emotionally as a person. The natural ego part of it will take over. So I'm not surprised. And I do believe there is some level of truth to this, a little more than a 50% level of truth to this, that there is friction here with her behind the scenes.
Now, John Rocha, speaking of ego, speaking of people who have, kind of running the place, Roman Reigns. How about that? Roman Reigns faces Lesnar at Crown Jewel. Roman Reigns retains the title. And then Brock Lesnar on SmackDown beats the crap out of everybody, gets suspended, so he'll probably be off TV for a while. Just looking at the future, like, who's going to be the one who's going to finally defeat Roman Reigns, and when's that going to happen?
That's a great question, right? Who is left on the roster to defeat Roman Reigns? He has taken on all comers. And remember 3 years ago when they announced Reigns versus Lesnar again and people just groaned audibly? And now it is the one you look forward to the most. This matchup, Lesnar being revitalized, reinvented with that sleeveless flannel shirt and the ponytail and the beard. He looks incredible. He looks like a completely different person, and his mic skills have just grown by leaps and bounds. So his back and forths with Roman Reigns have just been fantastic. But I don't see anyone, except for maybe the Mighty, who's involved with other things, Bobby Lashley, or Big E. I don't see anyone on the SmackDown roster right now that can give Roman Reigns a run for his money. And Lesnar is right now, I think we're just going to have people who fill in until Lesnar comes back from this supposed suspension and takes on Roman Reigns for the belt. But even then, Dan, do you think they'd give the belt to Lesnar after this guy like Reigns is an everyday wrestler and Lesnar is a part-timer? Do you really think they'd give him the belt with the way he's been running with this thing?
I think they'll give Lesnar the belt if Lesnar's terms of coming back and working say that he'll have the belt. He's had the belt before, and because Lesnar can Lesnar can call his own shots. He has his own dressing room. He pretty much does whatever he wants to do. Yeah. And Rocha, someone who always seems to do whatever he wants to do, whether people like it or not, is you, the Outlaw, John Rocha. John, how do we find you online?
You can always find me at The Rocha Says on Twitter and on Instagram. And if you want to head over to Twitch, The Outlaw Nation. And if you're a pro wrestling fan, head on over on Saturdays live at 12 p.m. PT on my YouTube channel. We do our show Strong Style with my co-host Aaron Turner. It is youtube.com/John Rocha Says, ROCHA. Come and get some knowledge and some fun takes from us.
Always goes by too quick when I talk to you, John Rocha. We got to talk again soon. Thank you so much for coming on San Antonio Wrestling Showcase.
Thank you for having me, Dan. Appreciate it. And shout out to all my conservative lovers. I love you. I love you all.
We love you.
Thank you for having me on, Dan.
Thank you, John. John Rocha. Find him online, Strong Style Wrestling. Good guy. Hopefully he doesn't get us in trouble with the radio station. It's okay. Shemai is saying, no, we're fine. We're good. We're good. All right. I hope you're good. We're going to take a quick 1-minute break here. We'll come back with more San Antonio Wrestling Showcase.
The secret of my success, before every matchup, I pump up with this. Arrogance. It's today's man in a classic can. The fragrance that overwhelms, and pins down the competition. It's arrogance for man. Until we meet.
Hey, it's Dan Cialana, host of San Antonio Wrestling Showcase. This show is a self-funded passion project for the wrestling community. If you love wrestling and you want to support this show, there's lots of ways you can help. Follow us on social media at SA Wrestling Show. Tell your wrestling friends about us. Let us know what wrestlers you'd like to hear us interview on the show. Or consider becoming a sponsor of the show to advertise your business or event and help keep this project going. To learn more and to keep up with the show, find San Antonio Wrestling Showcase on social media at SA Wrestling Show. Ah, that beautiful music of those beautiful ladies, the Iconics, but now known as the Inspiration at Impact Wrestling. And I'm going to talk about Impact Wrestling with a guy who always knows what he's talking about. I'm talking about Stew Myrick from Sports Guys Talking Wrestling. What's up, Stu?
Dan, what's up, man?
Now, Stu, I was kind of hoping that maybe last night you'd send me some credentials for Fight TV, maybe for this Impact Wrestling pay-per-view. And I know you know some people behind the scenes at Impact Wrestling. Thought I might get the hook up. I don't know. Maybe I got to be more assertive next time. We could share a password.
I only had one, so I had to use it for myself.
I don't want you to get in trouble with your contacts there. I know you spent a lot of time building good relationships, and you don't want Dan Cialana here to be ruining those those relationships with Impact Wrestling. And I'll be honest, Stu, this is the first time that I've watched a Impact Wrestling pay-per-view legally. I actually purchased it last night on Fight TV, and the Iconic, just like the music we played there for the rejoin, they're the ones who really pushed me over to watch the pay-per-view now as the Inspiration. What did you think of the debut last night of the Inspiration at Impact Wrestling?
It was what you would expect. Jesse and Kathy coming out and doing their shtick. It was the great kind of the paradox between them and Decay with Rosemary and Havoc. And them getting the belts, that didn't exactly surprise me. You had to figure that was a big enough act to where they have the debut. They're going to put the belts on them. So now we'll see what they do in the weeks to come on Impact TV, on Access TV, as the Knockouts Tag Team Champions.
You know, the Iconics and now the Inspiration, you know, they like making a big splash. I remember when they made their debut on WWE, the main roster. It was one of those Mondays after WrestleMania, and they actually caused Charlotte Flair to lose the championship when Carmella cashed in. So last night, Inspiration debuting on Impact Wrestling, getting the tag team championships on their first night, I think is pretty appropriate. Now let's go back. Let's go to the end of the show, Stu. Let's go to the end of the show because this was a great story. Think about this with Josh Alexander facing Christian Cage. The show opened with this beautiful montage of Josh Alexander about how he's going to win the championship for his family, and it was so great. But what did you think of the ending? What did you think of how this Impact Wrestling pay-per-view ended last night with Josh Alexander getting his heart broken?
You know, it was a good story to tell. You had Josh Alexander getting the win over Christian Cage, became the new Impact Wrestling World Champion. They brought his wife in there and his son, and then all of a sudden, here comes Moose with that Call Your Shot Gauntlet trophy, cashes in, spear, 1, 2, 3, and now Moose is the world champion. It was interesting. I liked it. I'm not sure, and I guess it was fine, but I don't know. I had a little kind of with having his wife and son in the ring while Moose gets puts the spear on Josh. But be that as it may, good story. We'll see what Moose does. It's he is a heel, but it felt little like, at least last night, felt a little like he was maybe kind of leaning into the tweener area. But be that as it may, Moose, the new world champion. We'll see what happens with Josh Alexander. He's probably gonna come. I would assume he's gonna vie for it again. And they announced the next pay-per-view, Hard to Kill, be up in Dallas in January. So we'll see what transpires to lead to that event.
Talking to Stew Myrick from Sports Guys Talking Wrestling right here on San Antonio Wrestling Showcase. And now that Impact Wrestling pay-per-view last night, it ended on a sad note or an angry note or whatever. It was a bad ending. Not in terms of like it was not a creative ending, but it was an ending that doesn't send the fans home happy. And Stu, I think that's fine. Because I think if it's okay for fans to go home unhappy about the story, but not unhappy in terms of like they got ripped off. I echo your concerns too about Alexander's young son being in the ring there. I was watching, I was going, okay, has this kid been smart enough about wrestling? Does he know that his dad's going to be okay? And maybe was that where some of your discomfort came from in terms of wondering if the kid kind of knew about the entertainment value of wrestling?
I think it was a little bit of that and a little bit of just the physical aspect of having them in the ring. Here comes Moose and trying to make sure they're out of the way and all that good stuff. It was more just the logistical side. And, as far as sending the crowd home happy or not happy or whatever, this Bounce of Glory's Impact, that's their pay-per-view. That's their big pay-per-view every year. That's where they set, it's kind of their WrestleMania. And so it is kind of odd that you would close the show with something like that. The fans can't be too disappointed because it was a hell of a show. It was a great show, top to bottom. You had multiple title changes with Mickie James getting the Knockouts title, and you have the new X Division champion Trey Miguel could not be happier for Trey Miguel. He's such a good guy. You have Jordan Grace, the new digital media champion. So, it was a great show. So, the fact that it ended like that just puts a lot more intrigue into the weeks to come.
Now, a happier note of the Impact Wrestling pay-per-view last night, Mickie James defeating Deonna Purrazzo. Here's what bothered me. It had nothing to do with the match, but kind of the way that the commentators always talk about Mickie James. They talk about her like she's 80 years old. Like, oh, is time catching up to her? She's been wrestling for so long. And when I was listening to the commentators say these things, I looked up Mickie James, her age. She's 42. Do you ever hear anyone say that about AJ Styles? Go, oh, is age catching up to AJ Styles? Is it time for him to quit? Am I being too sensitive here in the idea that they're always, talking about Mickie James like she's about to die?
They might have been a little heavy-handed with it. I see what they were trying to do. They're trying to, it's the old veteran versus Deonna Purrazzo, who is the current hot thing, and kind of putting that into perspective. I could be happy for Mickie. I've known Mickie for a couple of years, and gotten to visit with her every year at the Super Bowl and stuff, and she is such a fantastic individual. Love talking to her, and she is, and so to see her win the title was a big thing, and big props to Deonna Purrazzo. She's still the Reina champion in AAA, and that's probably there's going to be a rivalry there that could eventually bring the Knockouts title back to Deonna Purrazzo. But I wouldn't put too much stock into it, only because I think it was more of just trying to, again, put it into perspective. Deonna Purrazzo, the kind of the younger, the hot thing versus the veteran that's been there and has been through the wars and everything. And I think that's what they were trying to do.
Talking to Stew Myrick from Sports Guys Talking Wrestling, talking about last night's Impact pay-per-view. Now, Stu, I may sound kind of negative here, and I've tried to like them, but I just get nothing from the Good Brothers. I don't really understand their appeal. I mean, they're big guys. They're impressive looking. I've never been excited to see the Good Brothers. And maybe I should have watched more stuff from Japan or whatever, but explain to me the appeal of the Good Brothers, because I just don't see it.
I think that's part of it is you go back to when they were running with the Bullet Club in New Japan Pro Wrestling, back when they were trading the IWGP heavyweight tag team titles with the likes of, I guess it would have been War Machine at the time, now known as the Viking Raiders in WWE, or some other teams. There was that. There's the Talking Shop thing. There's their podcast that they do with Rocky Romero, along with the Talking Shop. I've gotten to talk to both Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson a few times, and I think part of it is they exude their character, but it's kind of there's almost a little bit of a wink and a nod.
Yeah,
because they're kind of they're those guys that say, look, yes, we're being bad guys, but wink, wink, this is going to be kind of funny. And so you kind of have to, I guess you have to put that in it. And so, having them, slide in after the I guess it was Juice Robinson, I guess, hit the elbow, and then Carl Anderson shoot him away, gets the 1-2-3, and they retain the titles. I think that was, they're slimy heels. That's what they're going to be, and just like they do with the Elite in AEW, they're the same thing. And the only thing that was missing was having Don Callis with them.
Absolutely. Now, Stew Myrick, we only got about a minute left here. So Impact Wrestling, great. I think we both agree. Solid pay-per-view last night, Bound for Glory. It's my first Impact Wrestling pay-per-view that I paid for legally, and I plan to do it again in the future. So real quick, what would you like to see in the next few months, Impact Wrestling? What direction would you like to see them go?
Well, as I mentioned, it'll be interesting to see what contenders they have for Moose for the world title. We'll see what they set up for Mickie James as far as the Knockouts title. It's more of the same. They have been quietly doing some really good wrestling over the last several weeks and months even. Now, we're not seeing as much. I think, the Christian Cage thing, I think this was kind of like the end of his run in Impact. He's going to go back to AEW and do his thing there. we're still going to see some New Japan wrestlers. Saw last night the Minoru Suzuki is going to be coming to Impact.
Yep.
And we know he's been doing a lot. I got to see him in Dallas for New Japan Pro Wrestling.
That door's coming down, Stu. It's coming. That forbidden door is no longer forbidden. It's gone.
It's going to be there.
I got to hold you right there, Stu. Got to hold you right there. This show goes by so quick. Stu, how do we find you online?
Catch us at Sports Guys Talking Wrestling on Twitter, or at SDCWATX on Twitter, Sports Guys Talking Wrestling, Facebook, Instagram. We live stream Tuesday nights, 7:30 p.m. on our Twitch and YouTube channels. And, of course, you can hear us Wednesday night on The Horn in Austin. That's
Stew Myrick, Sports Guys Talking Wrestling. And this has been San Antonio Wrestling Showcase. Find us next Sunday, 9 p.m. right here at 9:30, The Answer.